Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
The Dryad of the Woods, Chapter 5, by VngelW. Chapter 5. Real. "You all right, Carol?" Felton asked. "You've been quiet all morning." She was huddled under her blanket in a corner, staring off into space. "Huh?" she replied. Felton chuckled. "I asked if everything was all right with you." She blinked for a second, staring over to Ruth, who was bundled up nearby. The color had returned to her face, her chest rising and falling in a calm rhythm. Felton noted this and glanced over to her. "She's doing fine now," he brought up. "She had episodes like that for years. This was probably the worst I've seen it, though." "Episodes? She was blue, Felton. That can't be normal." "You're right, it ain't. It's called Raynaud's disease. Makes the unlucky victim exhibit frostbite-like symptoms, usually to cold or stress. With Ruthie, it's a bit more extreme than usual, off and on at odd intervals. It's a good thing you woke me, though." Carol blinked. "I woke you?" It was Felton's turn to give her an odd look. "You don't recall screaming Ruth's name in the middle of the doggone night? Nearly made us all soil our drawers," he replied with a chuckle. "You woke me up, and when I heard what you said, I glanced over at her, and that's when we found her like that. Cold as ice." Carol glanced over at her and swallowed. The thought of the dream surfaced. It was more like a nightmare, and yet it felt so real. She thought of the snow in her hand. How was that possible? Then there was that thing. "And then what?" she managed to ask. "Well, you'd fallen back to sleep, apparently. About a minute later, I looked over and you were awake. Look, Ruthie's gonna be fine. Is that what's got you so quiet lately?" Carol bit her lip. "What's wrong?" Felton asked, noting her puzzled look. "It's nothing." "Hey, Felton, I got the sheriff on the line," Sam announced. "I got a hit." Sam was propped up on a chair, phone in lap near the wall. Everybody made their way over to him. "You got in touch?" Alex asked with a genuine smile. "Nice going, old man." "About time we got some good news flowing," Felton chimed in. Sam held up a hand for silence as he listened in on the phone. "Yes, sir," he said to it. "I can hear you, but you're breaking up a little. Yeah, we're doing fine. There's 5 of us in total." Felton could vaguely hear the phone on the other end of the phone. "We're managing so far, but our generator gave out yesterday," Sam explained. "That's correct. Yeah, the cars are no good neither." "No, sir." Yes, sir." "Ask 'em when they're coming," Alex suggested. Sam gave him a glare and held the phone closer to his ear. "What's that?" "Sorry, Sheriff, you're going to have to speak up. How long are you—" Immediately, the color seemed to drain from Sam's face. This seemed to add another layer of anxiety to Alex, who demanded the phone be handed over to him. However, the line seemed to go dead as the old man made multiple attempts to confirm the information. "So what'd he say? Spill it!" Alex snapped. Sam swallowed a bit, letting the phone slip from his hand. "Come on, Sam, I can't take the suspense anymore," Carol added. "Sheriff said," he started, "the avalanche's got the whole south end covered in at least 20 feet of snow. They're having trouble clearing it, let alone traversing. In fact, he said the terrain's been giving 'em issues and whatnot. Vehicles stalling and something about the areas they already cleared, appearing as if they hadn't been touched after a break. It hasn't been snowing like that. He says he ain't seen nothing like that before." A puzzled look circulated around the group as he explained this. "How long did he say until they get to us?" Felton asked. They said, given all the mishaps, a week at least. A frickin' week? Alex repeated. Are you crapping me? What kind of cops you got running this area? Calm down, Felton replied. He said the snow's been giving him trouble. That don't give him any excuse. Like I said to the old man, this is all y'all's mountain. Why aren't you equipped to handle it? Sam glared at him again. Watch it, Sonny. Like I said, Misty Pass don't get no avalanches. So what do we do, then? Carol asked. Felton gave off a sheepish smile. I guess all we can do is hold down the fort. We ration what we got, keep our minds in track for each other's sake, and we wait it out till they come. You think that's a good idea? She asked. What exactly are you suggesting we do otherwise? Well, for starters, how about we just make our way down, she continued, and meet the rescue team halfway instead of sitting here on our thumbs. You think that's smart, Missy? Sam asked. Even after everything you heard? Hold up, Alex chimed in. Lady, you want to go out in this freaking weather? I'm just trying to consider all our options, Carol replied. Yeah, well, it's a bad option. Period. Ain't going out in that fucking terrain unless it's on the back of a rescue chopper. Sam sighed. Can't believe I'm saying this, but ma'am, I have to agree with the suit on this one. Thank you, old man, Alex retorted. I guess it's true then. Wisdom does reside in the elderly. Sam grunted. I'm with the two on this one, Carol, Felton added. It's too dangerous to consider. Felton, what if it takes longer than a week? Or what if we run low on food before they get here? You really want to take that chance? True, but what if it doesn't? There's dangers with going on out in this kind of weather, especially after an avalanche. Horrible things can happen out there, Carol. That's not even including the time it'll take to move down the mountain. And what if they're not even there when we get to the bottom? I don't want to risk anybody's safety if we don't have to. Yeah, Alex annoyingly added. Plus, Blue Missy over there is still out cold. Don't think it'll be smart to move her after this last night. Carol scowled at him. Boy, did she want to crack him across the jaw. Luckily, Ruth started to moan as she came to, drawing everyone's attention. Felton, Carol, I say we wait till the week's out, Sam suggested. If we don't hear anything by then, maybe we reconsider the option. How's that sound? The two pondered the idea and then nodded. Sam returned one. Felton crouched next to Ruth as she sat up. Her eyes were red and glossy. Hey, it's okay, he said softly. How you feeling, baby girl? How? She started with a raspy voice. How long have I been out? Felton smiled. Just the night and most of the morning. Almost thought you'd sleep the day away. Sam appeared with a cup of hot cocoa. Here you go, Missy, he said, extending it to her. Thought this would brighten your spirits. Joy washed over her face as she took it, thanking Sam and choking down several gulps. Now, you sure you're all right, sweetie? Sam continued. You gave us quite a scare last night. Like a switch, the dread returned to her face. What? Felton sighed. Last night you had another episode, but worse than I've seen on you. We found you bluer than the sky in the summer and as cold as ice. Hell, we couldn't even get you to respond when we tried to wake you. Ruth held the cocoa closer in silence. By the grace of God, Carol sensed something was up and hollered your name, which prompted us to respond when we did. As he explained this, the two locked eyes again. I don't know what would have happened if she hadn't. My question is, did you go outside at any point? 'Cause it seemed like we were all bundled up pretty good in here. Ruth didn't respond. Felton realized her eyes were still locked on Carol's. Ruth, he repeated. I'm fine, she suddenly blurted, which startled everyone. She quickly stood up, spilling some of the cocoa she set down. Look, she said softly, I'm sorry, Dad. I don't know what happened. It was probably just a draft or something. Thank you for being there, but I'd really like to be alone right now, okay? Felton grudgingly nodded as she made her way to the hallway at the end. Something certainly got her shaken up, Sam noted. Carol immediately followed her. Ruth, she called out, halting her from entering the bathroom. I just want to be left alone right now, Carol, she said without turning around. You know what I want to ask you, don't you? Ruth turned around sharply. Please don't. I don't want to talk about it. Carol quickly closed the gap between them. So I wasn't just seeing things then. That really was you in my dreams. Carol, I don't. Ruth, I need you to tell me what the hell all that was. I can't even begin to explain the level of scared shitless I am right now. I don't even know what's real and what wasn't. Then there was the incident with you last night. You need to explain before I lose my mind. Tears began to fill Ruth's eyes. Ruth, please, Carol begged. She sighed. Look, you're better off if you don't get involved, okay? I would rather you just forget it. Can we leave it at that? Carol was dumbfounded. How could she pretend as if what they had experienced hadn't happened? How could anyone forget? Yet she couldn't find the words or the strength to relay that. With the silence, Ruth proceeded to the bathroom. Opening it, immediately their eyes widened as they settled upon the other side. It was the girl, that creature, standing there with its hands stretched out. She smiled, and in a ghastly voice spoke out, My God. Carol shrieked and quickly slammed the door on it. Instantly, the others came racing around the corner. Oh, what? Felton asked, half out of breath. What's wrong? Who screamed? Ruthie, are you okay? Carol ran up to him. Felton, we need to leave. We need to effing leave right now. What? Tell me what happened, he questioned with a puzzling look. Can we just leave, please? She begged. Carol, calm down and tell me what's going on. Again, she couldn't find the right words, though, and simply backed away into the wall. Felton looked over to Ruth, who was completely red-faced, huddled into a corner, crying hysterically. Ruth, what's wrong? He asked. She fumbled on her words in between tears. Oh, for God's sake, speak up, Ruthie, Sam demanded. All she could do was point in the direction of the bathroom. Immediately, everybody glanced at the shut door. The air was pin-needle silent. All eyes pressed on it, as if waiting for something to come bursting through. However, no motion occurred beyond it. Finally, Felton broke the trance and decided to do the honors. Dad, don't, Ruth said from her spot. He held up a finger to signal silence. As he crept towards it, the others watched anxiously like a family of deer in headlights. Felton's heart was pounding like a jackhammer in his ears as his hand settled on the handle. After a deep exhale, he slowly opened the door and peeked around the edge. He flinched at what he found. Inside, leaning up against the wall, was a tall bundle of twigs, much like the ones he found under Carol's truck. However, unlike those, these were fully intact, and strangely, they were fastened to form the shape of a person. What the hell is that? Alex inquired. Is that what all the hollering is about? Another frickin' tree? What the? Carol said, her hands running through her hair. No, that is not what we saw. There was something in there, she shouted in a tear-streaked, reddened face. I know what the frick I saw. Carol, please, Felton stated, attempting to approach her, but she swatted his hands away. No, don't, Felton, just don't. I am not frickin' crazy. Nobody's calling you crazy, he assured. Speak for yourself, Alex shot. Felton quickly tossed him a glare. Lay off her. I know what you saw. Ruth saw it too, didn't you? They all glanced over to Ruth, who was silent in the back, eyes still pressed upon the bundle leading in the bathroom. Ruth, Felton said softly, is that true? Her eyes carried over to his father's and to everyone else until they settled on Carol's. They were glossy and reddened, pleading for support. She started. I don't know what I saw. Carol shook her head in disbelief. What? What do you mean? How could you miss it? Tell them, Ruth. Carol, Tell them the dream, about the girl, what you saw, what we saw. What dream? Felton asked. Ruth, Carol pleaded. She's lost it, Alex stated. Frick you, Carol shot at him. Hey, Felton snapped at Alex. Carol, just tell us what you mean. Ruth, please. Ruth struggled to say anything, but eventually opted to be silent. Betrayal etched across Carol's face. Felton, Ruth and I, she began. I don't know how to explain it. We had this dream, but it was strange somehow. We were sharing it. Alex rolled his eyes. And in it, Carol continued, there was this thing. I don't know what. It wasn't just a dream, though. Whatever was in it, we saw here. It was in that bathroom. You mean the tree? Alex mocked. It wasn't a frickin' tree, asshole, she shot. Oh, really? Looks like one to me. Bite me. Hey, Felton barked, snapping his fingers. Enough, both of you. Come on, Alex retorted. First, Blondie over here. Ruins my car and gets us all trapped here. Now she's crying wolf and trying to drag your daughter into it. No doubt so we can just leave this place, and you're okay with it? Frick you, you son of a bitch, Carol snapped. She quickly cracked him across the nose. You bitch, Alex yelled, gripping it as blood gushed out. That's enough, Felton roared, yanking her away effortlessly like a doll. His voice shook everyone, prompting instant silence. He glanced over to Alex. I think you should leave. Alex scoffed, checking his nose again. As he turned to leave, he gestured the cuckoo sign to Carol, who responded by flipping him the bird. Once he was gone, Felton turned his attention back to the two. So is anyone going to tell me how the hell that thing got in here? He said, gesturing to the bathroom. Dad, maybe Carol's right. Maybe we need to leave. Ruthie, I'm not going to entertain that thought at this moment. Right now, I want to know why there's a damn scarecrow in the bathroom. If this is your idea of a joke, it ain't funny. Everybody's already on edge, and the last thing we need are tasteless pranks to set us off on each other. You're not listening, Felton, Carol chimed in. We need to leave. There's something here. No, Felton replied, gritting his teeth. It's too dangerous. Dad, Ruth continued, we could lead everyone down. You and I know more about this mountain than any of them. I said no. Hell, I haven't forgotten what you taught me. If you want, I could lead them myself. And risk losing someone out there with you again? I said no, Ruth. He snapped, instantly regretting his words. Ruth's face grew bright red. Tears streamed down it. Ruthie, I didn't mean. I knew it. I frickin' knew it, she stated softly. You do blame me. Before he had time to say another word, she bolted off. Confused, Carol glanced over to Sam, who shook his head solemnly. Felton, Sam started. No, he interrupted. Not right now, Sam. He nodded. Listen, you two. I need a minute alone, please. Take all the time you need, Sam said, leaving. Carol glanced at Felton. She wanted to apologize, but opted not to and followed Sam. When she reached the diner, Sam disappeared inside the kitchen. She could hear Ruth's soft cries nearby. She followed them to find her sitting at the foot of the stairs. She was playing with snow in her hands before tossing a ball of it across the lobby into the wall. "That was a real shitty thing you did back there," Carol remarked. "You made me look like a nut." "Fuck off," Ruth shot back, wiping her eyes. "I told you to just drop it." "Yeah, well, I wanted answers, Ruthie. After all, it's not normal when Satan's frickin' daughter appears in broad daylight. So excuse the heck out of me if I wanted to bring it up." "Yeah, well, it's none of your frickin' business anyway." "It is when I get dragged into it." Ruth kept her eyes forward. "Are you finished?" Carol gritted. She was ready to wring the little brat's neck. She decided it was best for her to leave when a thought crossed her mind. "In the dream, you mentioned it wasn't the first time it happened." "Yeah, what of it?" "How many times has it been?" Ruthie didn't answer. "You don't have to do this alone, you know. If you just open up to me, maybe I can help." "You don't know what you're talking about. If you really knew, you wouldn't want to get involved." "I can handle it by myself." "Really?" Carol was stunned. "I swear to God, you're the most stubborn, foul-mouthed. You're a tough little brat, I'll give you that. I wish I could say the same for myself." She winced as the pain from the earlier punch was finally settling in. Ruth noted this. "Yeah, well, that was a hell of a ride on that jerk. Don't think I can top that." "Yeah, hurts like a son of a bitch, though. I've heard of hard-headedness for some people, but damn it, he takes it to another level." She rubbed her hands. This prompted a light laughter between the two, which eventually eased into silence for a few seconds. "What is it?" Carol asked, finally breaking the stillness. "What is that thing, and what does it want?" Ruthie didn't respond. Carol was ready to give up until Ruthie sighed. She wants me." "Why, though?" Ruth glanced back at her. "You're not going to ever drop it, will you?" "Nope, you're not the only one who's stubborn, kiddo." She exhaled again. "You asked me yesterday if it was just my dad and me when we came up here. It wasn't. My mom would come up too. Used to come up here for as long as I can remember. They taught me all kinds of nifty tricks to survive in the wild. Map reading, pace counting, you name it. I used to love exploring with them." A smile was pressed across her face, but it didn't last long. Everything was fine until that day. It was 6 years ago. Chapter 6. Chosen. 6 years ago. Ruth poked her head out of the bedroom door, carefully glancing down the hallway. After a quick scan, she checked back into the room to see her mother, who was sleeping on the bed. A smirk crept over her lips. She was out like a light. Satisfied, she eased out of the door, shutting it softly behind her, and tiptoed down the hall. She reached the end and peeked around the corner. Sammy could be heard in the kitchen, singing to himself as he moved about, the sound of pots clanging as he did. Perfect, she thought with a devious smile. Cleaning right on time as usual. She crept over to the stairs, careful to not make a sound, until she reached the first step. She paused to listen if Sammy had noticed or not. His singing hadn't missed a note. Well, if you could call it singing. It was too easy. Then again, sneaking past him wasn't a challenge. The old man wouldn't notice a moose if it was walking right by him. The real challenge was getting past her father. She eased down the stairs, ensuring to walk heel to toe just as he had taught her. She could hear his voice talking among a group of others, breaking into laughter occasionally. When she reached the bottom, she could see a gathering of men in a corner. He was distracted. Another perfect opportunity. On top of it all, the lobby had the best cover, filled to the brim with furniture. She crouched to her knees and crawled to the first comforter, ensuring to take advantage of the laughter to unmask her movements. "So how old is the little dyke turning?" one of the voices asked out loud. "Believe it or not, she's jumping into the double digits," her father's voice answered. "Oh, buddy," another voice chimed in. "I know you already got that shotgun polished, don't you, Felton?" Her dad laughed. "Hell, why do you think I've been taking her up here every year on her birthday? Gal can damn well handle herself. She's been molded tough. I ain't doing shit. I actually feel sorry for any future sumbitch." Everybody broke out in laughter. Ruth made it to the door, using the uproar to crack it open just enough to slide through. The air outside was cool, the night sky lit by the moon accompanied by the span of thick clouds. All around was the soft blanket of snow, undisturbed for miles, tempting her to jump in to make snow angels. But she resisted the urge. Ruth was on a mission. She pulled out her keychain light along with a map, tracing over its design, noting the marked-out route into the heart of the forest. It was 2 years ago. She could still recall the day. She and her parents were out exploring in the forest when they came across a glow emanating from within a knot of trees. On closer inspection, they discovered it was from a strange flower. The entire thing lit up like a chem light stick from stem to petals. There wasn't a plant her parents couldn't identify, but this one had them completely clueless. It was the most amazing thing they'd ever seen. Her mother was mesmerized by it and asked her father to pluck it, yet the flower was far too back in the knot, and the mouth too tight. He joked that Ruth could probably reach it with her size, but her mother wouldn't have it. He did promise to try in the future to mark it on their map, so they would be able to find it again, though since then he was never able to retrieve it, and soon forgot about it, more than likely deeming it unobtainable. Until today, Ruthie smiled to herself. She was going to do the impossible and nab it. Her mother's birthday followed her own, several days from now, and there was no better gift that she could think of than the majestic flower. She already could picture her mother's face in awe at the gift when she handed it off to her. It would be perfect. Ruth pocketed the map with the route in mind, slid up her hood, and began to head off towards the trees. The wind started to pick up as she trudged her way through the snow. Even with her thick coat, its bitter kiss was cruel across her face. It must have taken at least 30 minutes to reach the tree line. She was sure her mother had noticed her absence. If she was lucky, she would think Ruth was with her dad. Even if she was caught, she was confident the flower would overshadow any potential chastisement. Ruth halted when she reached the trees. She took a second to check her map again, then gazed ahead. The looming bodies seemed to swallow the moonlight, presenting what appeared as an endless void beyond. She took a deep breath. She had come this far. There was no way she could go back empty-handed now, and took her first step in. The warmth of the moonlight quickly faded as she crossed the tree line's threshold. Once several feet in, she allowed her eyes to adjust, soaking up the darkness until the void revealed the obscure bodies of the trees around. Satisfied, Ruth continued forward, ensuring to walk carefully. There was no telling what lay hidden beneath the snow. Another 30 minutes bled into the night until she pulled out her map again. The flower was set to be another 200 meters, give or take, if she had been consistent with her pace count. However, she started to get worried. "Where is it?" she said softly. The flower was quite bright when they had found it during the day, At night, the blasted thing should have been a beacon, regardless of distance, especially in this dark. Yet she saw no sign of it from any angle. Had she gotten sidetracked along the way? No, she thought. Dad always said to trust your pace count. She folded up the map again, fighting off a shiver, and stuffed it back in her pocket. She counted onward until she marched 200 meters. However, no glow could be seen from the flower. Ruth felt tears form in her eyes. She was nowhere near it. Where had she messed up? Where is it? She screamed out into the darkness, kicking at the snow. Her voice echoed for a few seconds before fading. It has to be here. Annoyed, Ruth sat down next to a tree, placing her head into her knees. The cold had already begun to eat its way through her gloves to her fingertips, and she found out that she couldn't stop shivering now. How long had she been out here, going in the wrong direction? It had to be at least an hour, perhaps more. She was going to hear an earful from her parents, her mother especially. Ruth sighed and prepared to take the walk of shame back, when something caught her eye. A glow. Her eyes widened and her heart started pounding. Was it the flower? She started to run towards it. The glow was pulsating in the distance. How had she missed it earlier? Maybe it only glowed at certain times. It didn't matter, though. She'd found it. When she reached the area, she immediately halted. Her joy was short-lived as she stared in awe at what was before her. The glow was not coming from a flower, but a deer. A large one, standing tall with massive antlers. It stood just a few meters away, its body glowing exactly like the flower, as if the creature itself was comprised of light. It stood silently, casting its bright white glow around the forest, like the sun. Finally it perched its neck towards her, locking its blue-encrusted eyes with her. They were gorgeous, like staring into stars, radiating endless colors of blue. Ruth suddenly felt a chill swiftly grow within her, as if ice had been packed inside her body. The cold instilled on her face grew with it to a painful sting, settling into a numbness, yet she ignored the feeling, still locked in a staring contest. What was that thing? The deer finally broke the trance and walked towards a tree. As it crossed behind it, its body disappeared. From the other side emerged a tall, pale figure. A young girl. Ruth was speechless. A white aura engulfed the girl, accenting her pale skin that seemed to rival the snow. Was she the deer? Her head was fitted with a set of similar yet smaller antlers. Half of her body appeared to be human, but the legs were like the bark of a tree. Ruth didn't know what to do or what she was looking at. Somehow she managed to find her voice, but all she could say was, "What? Who?" The girl smiled. It wasn't a creepy one, but seeing it come from something like her didn't ease the nerves on Ruth. "Hello," she said with a layered voice that seemed to echo. It could talk? "Hi," Ruth stammered. The girl cocked her head to the side. "What's wrong, child? Are you afraid?" Ruth nodded. "Please don't be. There's nothing to be afraid of." "Who are you?" The smile widened on her. "My name's Shioni. What's yours?" Ruth? Why was she telling her name to this stranger, this thing? "What a beautiful name. I have wonderful news, Ruth. You've been chosen by Mother." Ruth gave her a confused look. "Whose mother? Yours? Shione's lips finally parted to reveal a set of jagged teeth. Yes, my mother. But she's also yours, too. I already have a mother, Ruth replied. She is also her mother, too. She's everyone, the pale figure explained. Her eyes radiated like blue embers. All are her children, but not all are chosen. Only the daughters may be given the honor. Come. She held out a hand, revealing it too was made entirely of jagged wood. No, Ruth answered softly. Her legs felt so numb she could barely feel them. She took a step back. I have a mom, and she's waiting for me. The air felt even colder. There was no wind, and yet it felt like the very presence of the girl was draining whatever heat lingered around. None may reject the call when chosen. Now come, she said firmer. No! Ruth yelled and took off in the opposite direction. Without warning, the wind suddenly picked up, streaming heavily against her face, forcing her eyes to water. Snow began falling in heavy clumps, obscuring her view ahead. Ruth felt her balance teeter, but she pressed onward. Where did this storm come from suddenly? Was she being chased? She was too afraid to look back, though. All the while her legs felt like jelly, each one threatening to give out under her weight. Her heart was crashing against her chest, fueling her with adrenaline, while her lungs were begging for her to stop, at the mercy of the icy wind singeing them. On the verge of collapse, Ruth finally halted. She needed to find her bearings. She pulled out the map, struggling to open it with numbed fingers. However, the wind abruptly tore the paper from them, flinging it up into the darkness. No, she yelled out, unable to grab it. Ruth! Chione's voice carried in the wind. It was like her voice fueled it, increasing its pressure. None may reject the call when chosen. Leave me alone, Ruth screamed out. She spun around, attempting to locate any recognizable landmark. But everything looked the same. Trees, darkness, and snow. The flakes started to fall in thicker clumps. Ruth hugged her arms as the bitter cold continued to sink its cruel fangs into her. Mom! She called out. Mommy! Maybe if she yelled loud enough, her mother would hear. She had been gone long enough for them to notice. Surely they had to be looking for her. Mom! That's when her heart dropped. She heard it. Ruthie? It wasn't the creature's voice. It was her mother's. She wanted to cry tears of joy, but nothing came out, and the ones she had already shed had frozen to her cheeks. Mom! Over here! She yelled, still unable to pinpoint a direction. Her eyes lit up when she remembered her flashlight keychain. She pulled it out, struggling to turn the switch on in her frozen fingers. When she did, she waved it around crazily, hoping it would be seen from any direction. Finally, she saw a small light in the distance. Ruth, I see you. I'm coming. Ruth could hear her boots crunching against the snow rapidly as she approached. Don't move, baby. Just hearing her voice seemed to warm her up. She shined the flashlight ahead, catching sight of the familiar red coat of her mother. Ruth couldn't contain herself anymore and tried to run towards her, but she lost her balance and fell in the snow. Her legs were done. At this point, her mother would have to carry her back, but she didn't care. Ruth! Her mother ran up from behind a tree and immediately came to a dead stop. Mom! Ruth exclaimed, but her smile faded when she noticed her mom's wide eyes looking beyond her. Oddly, her face began to grow brighter from something behind Ruth. Her heart skipped a beat as she slowly turned around. Standing a few feet away was the pale girl, only she wasn't smiling anymore. "What the hell?" Ruth heard her mother whisper. "Ruthie, slowly come to me. Slowly now." However, Ruth couldn't peel her eyes from the creature. Its mesmerizing form was glowing brighter with each second. "Ruth!" her mother snapped. I can't, Mom," Ruth replied. "I can't feel my legs." "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll come to you." She could hear her mother slowly edging her way. All the while, Chione stood quietly, eyes following her as she did. "What the hell are you?" her mother whispered as she drew closer. The girl didn't respond. When her mother was at arm's length away from Ruth, Chione swiftly grabbed her wrist, yanking Ruth over to her side. "No!" her mother screamed as she halted. Ruth could see the anxiety boiling within her. "None may reject the call when chosen," the girl finally said. "Rejoice, your daughter has been selected for the highest of honors." "I don't give a frick what she's been selected for," she shot back. "She's my daughter. Now give her back." "She is Mother's daughter, as are I, as are you. None may reject the call when chosen." Her mother scowled. "You are not taking my daughter." Pale Girl smirked and started to turn with Ruth still in her clutches. "No, wait!" her mother yelled out. "Take me instead." Chione halted, giving her a blank stare. "You said we were all Mother's children. Then I can go in her stead. Just leave her be. This mother of all people should know the feeling of losing her children, right? I'll do anything for mine, please." "You do not decide." "Please." Tears were streaming down her face. "Don't take my baby girl." "You do not decide. Only The girl paused in mid-sentence as a deep howl of wind drew her attention further back into the trees. Without hesitation, her fingers uncoiled from Ruth's wrist. Ruth fell to the ground and instantly crawled over to her mother's arms. She hugged her tight, feeling a small hint of heat from her body. "It appears Mother has decided to accept your offer," Chione stated. "I know this thought. It only postpones the inevitable. Ruth's time will come again." Her mother glared at her before looking down at the shivering little girl. "Listen here, Ruthie," she whispered into her ear. "On 3, we're gonna run for it, okay?" "But I can't." "It's okay. I'll carry you if I have to," her mother interrupted. "And if at any time we get separated," she pulled out a whistle from under her neck and placed it over Ruth's. "You blow this as loud as you can. Your father will hear it, understand?" She simply nodded. "Okay. Come," Chione stated. Her mother gave her one last hug and whispered, 1. They stood up. 2. Ruthie felt her mother's grip tighten on her hand. Her heart was pounding erratically at this point. What happened if she tripped up? Would her mother notice and come back for her? What if she accidentally pulled them both down? She swallowed as she anticipated the last count. Now! With a great force, her mother yanked her forward as she took off. Ruth's legs were still numb, but somehow they found strength in the momentum. They could do this. They could get away and put all of this behind them. Yet as they got just a few feet away, Ruth felt a hard reel that tore her to a standstill. She turned to see her mother had stopped in mid-run. Mom, what are you doing? Let's go, come on. Her mother, though, remained fixed, staring at the ground. She slowly lifted her head to reveal a set of blue, glowing eyes, matching Chione's. Ruth flinched at the sight. Her mother's grip loosened and she turned back to the pale girl. None may reject the call when chosen, her mother said in a monotone voice. Mom? Ruth pleaded. Her mother simply repeated the phrase as she started to walk towards Chione. Mom, stop! However, her pleads fell upon deaf ears. Ruth tried to pull her arm, but to no avail. It was like she was trying to yank a boulder. With a flick of Chione's wrist, ice formed from the ground, wrapping around Ruth's ankles, reeling her down, forcing her grip to slip from her mother's. Mom! She screamed repeatedly, trying to break away from the ice. Her tears were too dry, too frozen, her nose runny and freezing over her lip. Yet her mother continued to walk in a daze over to Chione, taking her hand. The pale girl glanced back, lips extended into another wide grin. Fear not, child. Mother will call for you again. Ruth put the whistle to her mouth and blew with all her might. She prayed that her father was nearby. If there was one person who could tear that thing apart and return her mother to her arms, it was him. She blew into the whistle long and hard. Her mother and Chione slowly grew distant, but the light radiating from them fading back into the darkness. All the while, Ruth kept blowing the whistle. She blew, ignoring the pain growing in her head from the strain and the urge from her lungs to take a breath. She kept blowing until she blacked out. Later, I woke up to the sight of my father and a search party. Ruth finished. Apparently they were looking for me the whole time. I thought only an hour passed, but turns out it was 5. My mother had broken away on her own. Dad told me she was probably following her instincts like she normally did. After several hours, they had to call the search off for the night due to an unexpected storm. By then, Mother hadn't returned either. It took 4 men to restrain my father all night, to keep him from going out to find us. The next morning, the team was sent out again. They searched the hills up and down, not leaving a patch of snow unturned. Right when all hope was about to be lost, they found me. They told me I was balled up in the snow, whistle still in my mouth, asleep. They don't know how I could have survived, claiming I should have been a popsicle the way the temperatures was, but I was fine, save for some minor frostbite. What about your mother? Carol inquired. She was nowhere to be found. I was the last one to see her. They tried searching for her for the next few days, but gave up on the 3rd. I don't think Dad's forgiven me since then, and I don't blame him. I haven't forgiven myself. Ruth wiped her eyes. He doesn't even mention Mom anymore, which doesn't help because I practically forgot what she looks like or how she sounded. Ruth, Carol started, I'm so sorry. My mother protected me. It was supposed to be me, but she took my place. Since then, I've been having those dreams, each one ending with an episode. Because of her, she stays in my head. Every time I dream about her, I can't control my actions. It's like she's trying to get me to come back, to heed the call. I'm fed up with it. I feel like she'll keep tormenting me until I do. Ruth, you're not trying to. You can't be serious. It wants me, Carol, Ruth stated. I dragged you all into this, and I'm sorry. The avalanche, the generator, the rescue team. I'm the only way it can all stop. Don't you want to go home? Carol shook her head. There has to be another way. There isn't. It's plain and simple. This thing's powerful and it'll do anything until it gets what it wants. The fact she's connecting our dreams might mean you're next. Carol swallowed. Do you really want to wait around till then? Ruth asked. Or until it tries something else? Something worse? Felton struggled to maintain his grasp on the makeshift scarecrow of twigs as he tilted the headpiece out of the diner window. He pushed until the whole thing fell over with a heavy thud. Relieved, he climbed out and began to drag it through the snow. He didn't want it anywhere near them. He stopped when he reached the side of the shack. Satisfied, he started to head back when he heard the voices in the air. Instantly, his spirits felt lifted. "The rescue team," he said under his breath. He paused and listened closer. The voices continued, but as they got louder, they sounded less and less like their salvation. The hair stood up on the back of his neck at the realization. He glanced over at the tree line once again, and on cue, that familiar chill within his stomach grew like a weed. However, this time, Felton caught sight of something that made his blood freeze. Amid the tree, he saw a pair of blue, gleaming eyes staring back at him. So quoth this raven. My darlings, I certainly hope you have enjoyed this so far. This is a wonderful story. There are 2 chapters left, which I will get to probably next week. And I really enjoyed this. You know it's right up my alley when the Fae get involved. Thank you all for coming. And special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Ermin, Darren and Jennifer, Laura, and Charlotte Emerson. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.